everyone?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yasher Koach. Micah, very impressive, I have to say. And we're going to continue now with, as our custom, the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And maybe I'm going to share my screen. There we go. And those of you who are saying Kaddish can say Kaddish along with me. You'll see it here in the Hebrew and in transliteration. And then we'll continue with a regularly scheduled evening's program. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah v'alma divra kirute v'amlich malchute v'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mivorach leolam ulomei maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei dekudesha b'richu leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiram b'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru, amen. And now with our Havdalah service over, it's my pleasure to pass the microphone icon along to my friend Karen Everett, who's going to introduce the evening's program. Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you, Rabbi. Wow, it was an incredible Havdalah and very inspiring as we come together as a community tonight. Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see so many of my friends of Westchester Jewish Center here with us tonight. And we are in for a treat, first with a delightful concert by the fabulous, incomparable Neshama Carlebach, followed by her husband and our scholar in residence, Rabbi Menachem Creditor. On behalf of my co-chair, Myra Gleitchen, and myself, we want to thank all of you who have donated in support of the Scholar in Residence Weekend. We're grateful to our donors at every level, including the Ambassador Circle, benefactors, patrons, sponsors, and others. You all make it possible for the entire Westchester Jewish Community Center community to provide engaging, high-quality programming, which brings us together and enriches our Jewish intellectual and spiritual lives. A special thanks to our friends and fellow members, Shari and Joel Beckman, who are with us tonight. Shari and Joel have generously underwritten tonight's concert, for which we are indebted. Shari and Joel, I turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Karen. Good evening to everyone. I am here to introduce Neshama. It's a little anticlimactic now that we've already met her, but those of you who know her know what a special treat we're in for this evening. I wanted to just give an unofficial introduction of my meeting and getting to know Neshama, which was over 15 years ago at somebody's home in someone's living room for a very special UJA event that I was chairing. And I was so taken by and mesmerized by Neshama's voice in the living room that I came home and I said to Joel, we have to have Neshama come to our living room. So several years later, through another UJA event, we were able to invite Neshama to come and sing in our living room. And it was really a treat of a lifetime. And we are always talking about how grateful we are that we had that experience. And we are so happy this evening to be able to bring Neshama into everyone's living room at WJC. So feel like we have come full circle. So now just a little official introduction. For those of you who don't know, I will tell you that Neshama is an award-winning singer, songwriter, and educator who has performed and taught in cities all around the world. Neshama is the daughter of Rabbi Neshama Carlebach, a charismatic rabbi whose extraordinary music transformed and enhanced Jewish prayer for all time. Neshama found herself to be a target for judgment and alienation when her father became an extremely controversial figure years after his death. Through her own soulful writing of music and interaction with women who endure difficult life situations like her own, Neshama dedicates this phase of her life to facilitating healing. She is a very special and perfect addition to our weekend of healing with her husband, Menachem Creditor. We are so grateful to have her with us this evening.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. So lovely to see you all, to be here. Thank you, Holy One. Thank you, Only One. I hope that wherever you are, you will sing. We have so much, so very, very much to be grateful for. joy it is to be with you on a Shabbat where my beautiful husband is serving as scholar in residence for your incredible community. I am only waiting for the moment where we can be together in person and where I'm not just feel like I'm eavesdropping on the live stream, to be all together. During the pandemic, my most precious thing has been to walk with my family. Every day, even today, unless the weather is too much, my sons and I, we hold hands and we walk through the streets. And it's something that I've never experienced before, the quiet of just walking, because there's not a lot of places that we need to be. And it occurs to me in the middle of all of this crazy life that we are living in, this disconnection, how blessed we are, how God is present in every sunrise and sunfall, that despite the sorrow and everything that we are going through, we are so truly blessed to be alive. This is a song about the Spirit of God. Not by might, not by power, by your Spirit, God. Send your Spirit, God. Not by might, not by power, by your Spirit, God. Send your Spirit, God. You are the fire, and we are the temple. You are the voice, and we are your song. You are our God, and we are your people. You are the light, and we stand in awe. We stand in awe of you. We stand in awe of you. Not by might, not by power, by your Spirit, God. Send your Spirit, God. Not by might, not by power, by your Spirit, God. Send your Spirit, God. So in this pandemic, I have been blessed to sing over 260 times at Zoom events. And I've had the blessing of singing at gala events, at funerals, at shivas. And I have to say, I have never felt more blessed to have a voice that can bring something. I don't even know what I bring. I just pray always that I can bring something. My most joyous, and I have to share this, I hope it's okay, Rabbi Arnowitz, the greatest day of my Zoom career was this incredible day where we were privileged to be present when a very, very special lady converted. And your Rabbi Arnowitz, your precious rabbi, was there to guide her. And I was there to sing to her before she went into the mikveh and after she went into the mikveh. And I'll never forget it. Isn't it true? You want to say something about it? I'm serious. I don't mean to put you on.
It was amazing. Thank you. It's one of my my highlight days of the pandemic as well. Very beautiful.
It was absolutely a blessing for me. So over this time, as I've been singing all over the place, the song that has kept me going is the Mishaberach that we created, Beth Stiles and I, before the pandemic began. Hear our prayer. We wanted to create a song for when you're in need of prayer, whether you're not well or whether you're sad or whatever it is. We wanted to create something that would make people fill with joy and sing and scream amen from the abyss of their place and come back, just to come back. So this was our song, and I feel very connected to all of you, and I would hope that in the chat, if you have a moment, you can write down the names of people that you're praying for, maybe the names of people you're missing. Who do you want to hear your prayer right now? Who do you want to scream amen from this side of the universe to the other for? Who are you thinking about today? Who are the people that you miss that maybe you haven't called enough? Who are the people that maybe after we're having this moment, you can get on the phone and just tell them you love them? In the middle of the song, there is a little piece of one of my father's melodies, a melody that has lifted me when I'm sad. Friends, wherever you are inside, may our prayers be heard. May we scream amen to each other's prayers. May a new day come so soon. May we be blessed, may we be blessed. Please hear our prayer. May we be known, may we be heard. Please hear our prayer. Let us say amen. May we be blessed, may we be blessed. Please hear our prayer. May we be known, may we be heard. Please hear our prayer. May the source of life, who bless the ones before us, heal us now. Thank you for all of your names in the chat. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for singing. All it takes is a moment to turn things around. All it takes is a moment to feel love abound. I want to feel that feeling. I want to know that place. I want to hear the answers. I want to see your face. How long till we give love unconditionally? Until we see each life as holy. Until we get there, will we get there? Till we take your words to heart. How long? How all it takes is a moment to reach out our hands. All it takes is one moment to truly understand. I want to stand beside you. I want to make amends. I want to see your inside. I want to be your friend. And how long till we give love unconditionally? Until we see each life as holy. Until we get there, will we get there? Till we take your words to heart. How long? How long? Oh, how long? How long? How long till we become a world at peace? Until we lay down our arms and let the war cease? Until we break the silence that breaks the hearts of children crying, of hungry dying. How long? How long? How long till we give love unconditionally? Until we see each life as holy. Until we get there, will we get there? Till we take your words to heart. How long? How long? Oh, how long? How long? Oh, how long? How long? Ooh. Oh, how long? How long? All it takes is a moment. How's everyone doing, friends? Write to me in the chat so I know how you are. I wish we were together. I wish every day that we were together. Hopefully very, very soon. I'm sending so much love out to my friends who are on this chat. I'm feeling very, very emotional. I'm also feeling very emotional. I wanted to share, if I may, something personal with all of you. This week, a very special girlfriend of mine passed away just a few days ago. I feel like I've been walking in jello. You know that feeling? Like I'm awake and I was expecting it. And I had the honor and the privilege of saying goodbye to her. And I'm still just having a hard time breathing. So in honor of my good friend, Claire, and in honor of all of the people that we have loved and lost, who we love still, who walk with us, who don't leave us, I don't believe for a second. I believe we can't touch them in the way that we did, but I don't think we're very far at all, actually. I wanted to share a song that I don't often sing because it makes me cry, but maybe it's the right moment. This is Before You Go, the piece that I wrote for my father about a year after he left the world, when I was 20 years old. Before you go, please bless my soul. I've been thinking so much about what it means to die with dignity. And I feel like this moment, this generation, we have so many great teachers who are teaching us what really, really matters, what it means to live with dignity. And I thank them all. I do. And I pray that anyone in your life who is not well, may we see a healing quickly. May the vaccine be swift. May we find health and joy in each other's arms so soon. And may we feel the blessings from all the other realms. This is Before You Go. Thank you. Late at night, the dark is brighter than the silent moon. The empty hole that is my soul only grows, and every day I cry and pray for peace and bliss within. And I long so much for the time way back when your smile was all it took to set my spirit free. I saw the heavens in your eyes. It was bittersweet inside of me. Before you go, please bless my soul. So many unanswered questions in my heart. I was whole, now I'm ripped apart, and you were the one who helped me know myself. And I long so much for the time when your smile was all it took to set my spirit free. I saw the heavens in your eyes, so bittersweet inside of me. Before you go, please bless my soul. No regret, no turning back the time. At least once I held you. I wouldn't trade
all my broken tears, for a life without your eyes. Before you go, I bless your soul. Your smile was all it took to set my spirit free. I saw the heavens in your eyes, bittersweet inside of me. Before you go, please bless my soul. Before you go, I bless your soul. I bless your soul.
There's a very special, thank you, very special tefillah that we say around Tisha B'Av. Nachamu, nachamu ami. Comfort, comfort my people. Dabru elev Yerushalayim v'kiru eleha. Speak to the hearts of Jerusalem and bring them close. And we learn that there is not one word ever wasted or extraneous in the Torah, which means that all the ways that God is offering us comfort are necessary, which means that when we need comfort and then more comfort and then more closeness and more closeness, we just need it. Sometimes you need to hear I'm sorry more than once. Sometimes you need more than one hug. You need more. Sometimes we all just need more, and that's totally cool by me. And if you want to talk to me after, I support the needing of more friends. I think it's essential. And I love that the Torah, at the time when our holiest place was burning, I love that God acknowledged that we need more healing than even we can fathom. So this is my family song, written by my father, held by me all these years. This is the song for me that has brought me the most comfort. And thank you for, I'm watching the chat go by and I'm hugging you all. Thank you for your comfort for me, and I'm sending it all back to you. There is a space in this song with no words. The nigun is the reason I sing, friends. The place where we insert our own longing, our own words into the melody. We don't get hung up on words at that moment. We don't get hung up on anything. It's just the space where our deepest prayers live. So sing the words if you know them. Sing no words. Sing another song. It doesn't matter. We all need the comfort so much, and I'm feeling you. So if it's okay, I wanted to do two more, one on my own, and then I would love to call my beautiful, beloved husband all the way from the other room to come and for us to do something together before he enlightens our hearts with his words. This is the song that I created for my children. And it's called Shine. And it's about all the ways, and it's endless. You could write, parents know we could write 6,000 songs and never be done, or even it's never even going to begin, the things that we wish for our children. May our days be brighter. May we rise above. May we transcend the darkness. May we hold each other. May we cherish all of our children. And then I wrote, and shine on me, because as parents, sometimes we put ourselves last. Sometimes it's so hard for us to take just a few minutes to rejuvenate ourselves. But we know it's like when you're on the airplane and they say, make sure you put your oxygen mask on first. We need to love ourselves as much as we love our children. I came from a family where that didn't happen. And I lost my father so young because he never had any oxygen. And I'm always constantly praying, like, God, as much as I love my children, my two sons and my stepchildren and my husband, please let me be brave enough to love myself and to let the light shine on me. So I wanted to dedicate this song now, not only to my children and your children, but to all of my LaFell families, teachers and caregivers and children who I'm seeing in the chat. And I am profoundly grateful for the ways in which you have held us all, not just in the pandemic, but especially in the pandemic. May the light shine on us all. May we shine brighter than we ever thought possible. May our children know how much we love them, and may they know how much we loved ourselves. Boy, do I miss you all and love you all. This is Shine. May our days be brighter. May we rise above. May we hold each other with dignity and love. And may our words reflect it. And may our voices climb. May the heavens hear us. May the light shine and shine on me. And on all who need, shine it on me, Lord. And I will receive, shine on me. It's the air I breathe, oh Lord, shine on me. We make whole the broken, regaining peace and pride. May we treasure all our children and the preciousness of life. May we transcend the darkness and reach for the divine. Please hear us. May the light shine and shine on me. And on all who need, shine it on me, Lord.
rain, through the storm, I praise your name. I pray your light will shine on me. So shine on me and on all who need. Shining on me, Lord, so that I can receive. Shine on me. It's the air I breathe. Oh Lord, shine on me. Oh Lord, shine on me. Shine on me. Shine on
Amen. My husband. Come on. I want to just say that Menachem was my rabbi before he was my husband. And I remain so inspired. You are all very blessed to have him. And I'm so blessed because I hear his Torah all day.
I'm glad you still think it's a blessing.
I love it.
Friends, I gotta say, among the challenges that I couldn't have anticipated, maybe none of us could have, but in this one moment, I don't know how to describe the kind of grace that we are touched with sometimes in life, and I'm so grateful to the Beckmans and to the whole WJC community because I get to hear an angel of healing close to me and to share with you and to do a little bit of singing together, but to know that we have such great stuff ahead and to be reminded of that by you. So thank you.
We love you. Thank you. This was so special. Thank you.
All right, so let's sing something.
Come on.
All right. There's a song you might know. It has 3 Hebrew words, and wherever you are, sing them, you won't get it wrong. You probably wouldn't get it wrong even if we were listening to each other very well. The words are Olam Chesed Yibaneh. And we know that it's our job to bring this world into a better place and to do so with a gift that doesn't hurt anybody, a gift of love. And so wherever you are, this is for you. This is a song that points away. Olam chesed yibaneh, Olam chesed yibaneh, Olam chesed yibaneh, Olam chesed yibaneh, Olam chesed Olam chesed Olam chesed Olam chesed yibaneh, Yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai. And you must build this world from love. Yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai. And if we build this world from love, yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai, then God will build this world from love. Yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai.
Come on, we gotta hear you, everyone.
Olam chesed yibaneh. Yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai. 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 Yananai, nai, nai, yananai, nai. Nananai, nai, nai, ananai, nai. Neshama Carlebach.
Thank you. Such a joy to be with you. Thank you for having me, for inviting me. Thank you, Beckmans. Mwah. I'm hugging you soon.
I'm going to run into the other room. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. I've got this task to express the appreciation and the incredible feelings that the entire community is having, Neshama. You talked and sang of closeness, and you brought us closer. You talked of comfort, and you comforted us. You talked of healing, and you have brought so much healing and love to us tonight. And for that, we are eternally grateful. And I want to give one last thanks, not one last thanks, but maybe for tonight, to Sherry and Joel for bringing you, Neshama, to us. And what an incredible experience. We will carry it with us through the pandemic and beyond, I am sure. Now it's my pleasure to introduce my co-chair, Myra Gleitchen, who's going to take over for now. Myra?
Thank you, Karen. And thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. If you've been with us all weekend, welcome back. We're delighted to have you in. Please join me in welcoming Rabbi Menachem Creditor as this year's WJC Scholar in Residence. Rabbi Creditor is well known as a prolific Jewish leader and teacher. For over 20 years, he served as a pulpit rabbi in Sharon, Massachusetts, and in Berkeley, California. He founded Rabbis Against Gun Violence and has taken leadership roles in the American Jewish World Service, AIPAC, and the Rabbinic Assembly. In 2018, Rabbi Creditor was named as the Pearl and Ira Meyer Scholar in Residence at UJA Federation, where he is charged with amplifying Jewish learning and values. It is no wonder that Newsweek has named him one of the 50 most influential rabbis in America. Well deserved. Rabbi Creditor is also well known as a writer, poet, and musician, as we heard this evening, but he has really been quite prolific, publishing many books and recording many albums of original Jewish music. Looking back over his career, it is apparent that Rabbi Creditor is really a rabbi for all seasons, bringing inspiration and comfort to the Jewish community and shaping urgent conversations facing the community at that time. His Facebook learning session attracts thousands of people from all over the world and has in fact created a new worldwide spiritual community. We asked Rabbi Creditor to provide us with a spiritual roadmap this weekend under the theme of healing. Already he has taken us from the cloud of Har Sinai to the cloud of Zoom and challenged us to think about the new normal and what life is going to be like for the Jewish community after the pandemic is over. We look forward to tonight's discussion on Judaism as an essential ingredient for a healing world. Rabbi Creditor would welcome your questions if you post them in the chat. He will be available for Q&A after he's finished his remarks. Rabbi Creditor, welcome to WJC. We are honored by your presence.
Thank you so much, Myra. I cannot say how grateful I am to you and to Karen and to your rabbis and to your chazan, especially speaking to my friend, Rabbi Arnowitz. I was looking through my old photos to see if I could match the one that you sent of our time as Jesus and Pontius Pilate. So I can't find one, but I looked. I think you win. I'll keep looking. And I wanted to say also how emotional tonight has been for me and how emotional the whole Shabbat has been. I haven't been to shul. I haven't been to shul in so long. And in as much as what I said Erev Shabbat and this morning, I mean so deeply that we are present as community. We are viscerally real to each other. And we find new ways and we have to continue looking for them. But I don't think it's beyond us to create stronger and stronger relationships during these days because of the power of community. And WJC is without a doubt one of the very special places in the world that actively nurtures this when we don't need it in this desperate way, because we always need it. So I wanted to not only thank all of you for the opportunity to be with you, but also for the feeling of coming home. Because walking through the halls at WJC yesterday and today, I mean, I'm looking at Louise and Bobby right now. The moments that we have shared as a family together, your children and me, and then us together, I am profoundly moved to be in a place that has mattered so much to me. I'm looking at Serene also on my screen, who has shared so many of my life moments. And there are so many of us, Joel and Sherry, we learned together. There are so many different ways that this is a treasure for me personally. So let me get to the material, but I'm gushy. I feel so moved. How can I not begin with this overwhelming gratitude? And in fact, that points the way into some of our conversation for today. So my plan is to speak for a little bit and then to hear from you and to have a conversation as best we can. If I miss any of your questions, please know I live literally 15 minutes away and I have every intention of continuing our conversation whenever we have a chance. The design of today, the design of tonight's conversation is a continuation of where we began. With Myra and Karen, we developed sort of a roadmap that begins small. I really wanted to focus on the self, to look at the soul, the individual soul, what we need and what we bring and who we are, and in this moment and beyond. What does it mean to be a self, to be in connection with the divine at that level? Now, I don't know how you translate God. It's actually not so important to me how your specific belief structure looks. It's more important to me that a greater than self feeling is in your life. That could be a life of service to your neighbor, to your parent, to your child, to your friend. It has to begin, of course, by recognizing that you also are created in God's image, but the self is a good place to begin. And then going a little bit wider this morning, talking about community and what it is to see the evolution of community in a conscious and responsive way. Sometimes without even remembering the history that got us there. You might remember I shared this morning some moments in the American Jewish lineage where change happened without us remembering why. Why is there mixed seating? I talked about it's because of a fight between, synagogue leaders, and they needed a new place, and all they could find was a Baptist church that had family pews. Sometimes our changes are accidental. So looking at this moment right now, I wanted to take what we talked about already and move it forward, and to venture into territory that can be hard for Jews in community. Because if we have to say, well, let me start differently. If we have open eyes and we look at the world, we see a world in need. Let's just start there. This world is in need. If we got a little bit more narrow and we looked at our country, just a part of the world with artificial borders that we have cherished for, a few centuries out of the millennia of human existence. How do we think about that, and where is it necessary for Jews in that larger world? So let me begin with the punchline, because that's always a good way to do it. And then I'll work my way back there. Right? A certain person came to a certain rabbi thousands of years ago and said, tell you what, Shammai, convert me to Judaism while I'm standing on one foot. Teach me everything, and I'm in. And Shammai, who was a builder, was really good at rulers and measuring things, what we would call institutional life, said, are you kidding me? Go away, and chased him away with a builder's cubit, with a ruler. That same person found Hillel and said, teach me the whole Torah while I'm standing on one foot and I'll convert. And Hillel said one thing. It was the contrapositive, if I get the logical term right, the contrapositive of the golden rule in the Torah. Whereas in Leviticus, we are told, love your neighbor as yourself. Hillel said, what is hateful to your neighbor, what is hateful to yourself, do not do to your neighbor. All the rest is commentary. So the reason why I begin there is A, because it's a familiar story. It's always nice to begin with language that we share, but B, it means that we have neighbors and they matter. We have neighbors and they matter. My neighbor is named Bob. I only met him because we were all stuck at home. And I suddenly realized I didn't see his car leaving his driveway. And I said, are you okay, Bob? He said, well, I have dialysis twice a week and I can't get my groceries right now. It was at the beginning of the pandemic and all of us were going for Instacart, and the privilege of having an online thing to wait your turn to get, we still felt so desperate. But my concern for my neighbor was provoked by a life moment that knew no boundary between human beings. And in fact, if you pay attention to some beautiful philosophers who've worked in the field of immunology for a long time, one of them is Paul Farmer, a personal hero. And in a book about him called Mountains Beyond Mountains, his life story and world-oriented philosophy takes shape. He says, if you think that a problem that happens, and I'll just use Wuhan, even though he was talking about Rwanda, if you think that a problem in Wuhan is not your problem, you've forgotten how germs and viruses work. And so in order to actually take care of yourself, you better remember to take care of them. That's another way of saying, love your neighbor as yourself, all the rest is commentary. Because if you don't take care of your neighbor, you're not taking care of yourself. All the rest is commentary. We should do it because it's righteous. We should do it because it's right. But we should also do it if we want to live. We're told in the Torah, V'chai b'hem, live through these rules, live. So what's the essential ingredient that Judaism offers the world? An imperative to pay attention to the needs of our neighbors, knowing that our lives are intertwined. That's the whole thing. And that leads us into some really important and complicated conversation. So let's begin with a different beginning, and we'll get back to where we just were. So I recite in the morning a certain prayer. You might know it. It's the Modeh Ani. I remember teaching it on the bottom floor of WJC, all the way at the end of the hall where I used to teach music. And there's the words of Modeh Ani might be familiar to you. I am grateful to you, God. But when I wake up in the morning sometimes recently, that's not actually how I feel. I think it's important to name. It's not actually a response that I feel naturally coming to my lips. It's one of the reasons that Judaism is such a gift, because it guides us. It doesn't say feel this, it says do this, say this. Maybe you'll feel what you're saying if you allow yourself into the structure, if you surrender a little bit of the resistance to tradition. And I know I'm speaking to a shul community that already gets it, but what an important reminder it is to be told, say you're grateful in the morning, say thank you. You're breathing right now. You have the moment to say this prayer. And I'm brought straight into it by my teacher, and maybe yours, Rabbi Shai Held, who teaches very, very clearly in the mornings. If you open your eyes, you are receiving a gift you never could have done anything to be worthy of. I could not have done anything. And he's quoting Maimonides, but also saying it like a beautiful soul. If you know Shai, you know that's no exaggeration. He's just a gift. That the posture of gratitude that the words convey are meant to be felt by the sayer to such an extent that it's not I say thank you, it's modeh ani, he says. If you know Hebrew, it's not ani modeh, I am grateful. It's modeh ani, gratitude is me. My entire notion of self is gratitude, and the Jewish way of feeling gratitude is paying it forward. Right? I know that Dr. King said it, but so too have Hasidic rabbis, and so did the ancient rabbis, and so did the text. What's the most important thing you can do? Love your neighbor as yourself. Dr. King said it. The most urgent question we can ask is, what can I do for someone else? Love your neighbor as yourself. What's uniquely Jewish about that? Maybe that's not an important question. I'm talking to Jews. Let's talk about what we owe the world. I feel grateful for a world I didn't create. So what do I do? So that's a second starting place. You might realize I'm just going to keep on saying, let's start here, and I'm never going to actually end this cleanly. Because ultimately, if the world matters, and this is where I begin to get emotional myself, saying these words that we all think about, but I've been preparing. This world needs you. This world needs us. Now, there's joy in that. It's good work we get to do. John Lewis called it good trouble, but it's good work. I'm so grateful that I'm alive and I get to do it. But it's hard. So here's the other starting point, or maybe the third out of 5 I'll do. Some of my work has led me into political activism, and I never thought I'd get involved with it as a rabbi. I just didn't see it. Not as a child. I didn't pay attention. I was raised in a beautiful home, really. Like, I just went to day schools. I never met anybody who was different from me. I thought I cared about the world because I made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on Project Isaiah that I actually think UJA helped bring me into on Christmas Day. And I thought that was what I owed the world. That's what I thought the needs were. Just make a few sandwiches a few times a year. Give some blood, maybe. That's, but that's the end of it. I didn't really know anything. And that changed. It changed profoundly in a few moments that I can see and identify, and probably the learning that I was doing in my beautiful home, thank God for my parents, and in my schools, thank God for my teachers, about the world I hadn't yet experienced. It pervaded me with a consciousness I didn't really know how to apply. I didn't know how to articulate yet. But here's one moment that changed everything for me. I was recruited by American Jewish World Service, AJWS, to go to Ghana. And it was a trip that I'd said no to a few times, but Ruth Messenger, who is now a very dear friend, she signed Neshama and my ketubah. I hope you have learned from her already. And if not, find her. She'll answer you very quickly. And what she says, you'll need to hear, whatever it is. She recruited me to this trip, and I said no a few times, and she put a little bit more pressure, as Ruth does. And so I went. And a few weeks before I got on the plane to Africa, I started having some pains in my belly. And it turns out I was having gallbladder attacks. And so I didn't want to have gallbladder surgery in Africa, God forbid, and I couldn't go if I didn't have the surgery. So I had the surgery 8 days before I got on the plane to Africa, which is not the way to travel, just in case you were wondering. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. But because of the pain that I was in, I barely made it to the airport. But when I finally got there with my luggage somehow, we were there, a bunch of rabbis from around the country, to dig for a latrine and to help build a building in a building which was part of a school called Challenging Heights that AJWS was funding. Why? Because in Ghana, in the district of Winneba, not so far from the capital, Accra, there are children who were slaves, who were freed by the leaders of this school. Real slavery today. And I don't have the words for that. I don't know how to speak of it. I know we were slaves in Egypt. We were strangers in a strange land. I know that language, but I don't know that reality. because of the pain I was in, I couldn't do any of the physical work that all my colleagues were doing. So I just sat there. I just sat. Ruth kept on giving me ibuprofen, and I kept on saying, "Are you sure this was a good idea?" She said, "Just sit." And what I ended up doing was witnessing the work. And because the children who were free, and I didn't know which of them had been slaves or were blessed not to be slaves, but still in difficult circumstances, they would gather around me, and we were told in advance they would want to touch our arms. Just to be around safe adults was spectacular for them. Hopefully it was healing. And I was white, so I'm exotic. I was the minority in a way that I'd never been before. That was eye-opening. And this one girl, Sarah, every morning would find me and would sit next to me on my side. She would lean her head on my arm. When I tell the story, I try to feel her head again. And she would tell me stories, and I would tell her stories. And in fact, the funniest moment was she found out that I was Jewish. She didn't really know what a rabbi was. She heard of Jews. She said, "Do you know Hebrew?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Can you translate John 3:11 into Hebrew?" That was a great moment. I could, by the way. I don't know. I think that's probably how John spoke at first, but anyway. So each day we would hear a bell when it was time to eat. Rabbis digging holes heard a bell, so we went to have lunch. But we were told we couldn't bring things to people. It just created a power dynamic. It was an inappropriate use of privilege. I'd never thought about these terms. And so the bell rang, and Sarah looked at me and she said, "Oh, are you going to eat now?" I don't know her circumstance, and I don't want to make her feel bad. So I said, "Well, I'll eat soon." And she looked at me without missing a beat, and she said, "I hope you eat tomorrow." And that's when it all changed. I never knew anything like that until Sarah taught me. I never knew how privileged I was. I'm sitting there in pain, but I've got food. I'll heal from the surgery. I had insurance to cover and accessible health care to receive. And here I am digging a hole, and I can't even do that. But I'm fine, and I'm not worried about food. I never thought about it until that day. I have never looked at a meal the same way since. A posture of gratitude coupled with a recognition of deep inequality in the world, that's Jewish responsibility starting to process itself. I came back from that trip and became a little bit more active. I became a trustee at AJWS. The summer after that was 2014. You might remember there was a war in Gaza and in Israel. I was helping with AIPAC. I was leading a group of progressive rabbis who were about to take our first trip, not to Israel, but our first trip as progressive rabbis aligned with AIPAC. And for me, that wasn't new, but for many of my partners, my colleagues, that was a new trip. And as we landed, the missiles from Gaza started to fall. That's literally the day the war began. And it changed so much of the itinerary, obviously, our recognition of what we were doing. And since I was a rabbi in Berkeley, a reckoning with the surrounding world that didn't acknowledge Israel as vulnerable or Jews as partners in trying to survive and do okay, just trying to survive. That wasn't the way Berkeley saw Jews, or certainly Israel, maybe not even America. It's a very complicated conversation to have. But when I came back, I was still swimming in my experience the year before, traumatized in some serious ways because one of the missiles went off right over my head, and Iron Dome knocked it out because of the partnership, the alliance between the United States and Israel. But it was all in me. And I recommitted myself not only to working as a Jewish Zionist, but also to helping a Berkeley community understand at least what it was to be me, what it was to be us, what it was to be connected to Israel. So I went to the headquarters in San Francisco to have a conversation with colleagues about trying to bring this conversation into our communities. But as I was going there, I was thinking to myself, how do I communicate Jewish vulnerability given the extreme vulnerability that I was newly aware of? So on the way back from this meeting, it occurred to me that we were rabbis talking in plush chairs about Jewish vulnerability in the world, and it's real. Anti-Semitism is real. I need not tell you. Our confrontation with it yet again as Jews, even in America, especially in America these days, it is real. But I had not confronted it in any textured way. And there we were, sitting in plush chairs, having Danish, access to the leaders of our country, talking about vulnerability. And I'm thinking about all this, and I got back in my car, and I'm driving back to the Bay Bridge, and I look to my left, and there's a homeless man pushing a shopping cart, wearing plastic bags on his feet. And it suddenly occurred to me that he looks like the Jew that I usually think of. Anatevka, Inquisition, Chmelnytsky, Shoah. Who's the Jew? Here I am wearing a suit, eating a Danish, talking about vulnerability, but with the ability to do something about it. Again, a posture of gratitude, a growing recognition of inequality, a real worldly experience of it, and suddenly a reckoning with the position that Jews are in this country. It is very strange, very strange. How many Jews are in positions of influence right now in our government? The second gentleman, the majority leader. Now, agree with them or not, Eric Cantor also was in a position of extreme influence. All of us are in this bizarre moment where suddenly the Jew doesn't sound like the Jew when we really pay attention to it. So what is our obligation? So let me quote another Jew. One of the problems, by the way, let me just pause, because one of the big problems of giving a talk from home, I found, is I have my whole library. So what you don't know is off camera, I've got a pile of like 15 books right here, and I'm trying not to grab them. I'm really trying not to. Here's one though. So this is great. Dissent in the Supreme Court. And it's a real study of Louis Brandeis. Louis Brandeis, the first Jewish Supreme Court justice in America. And what's amazing about it is the introduction begins with this: Talmud, Mishnah, Eduyot. In addition, the time might come when the minority opinion becomes the majority opinion. According to Rabbi Yehuda, an individual opinion is cited along with a majority opinion as it may be needed at some time in the future. So I'm going to unpack that and you'll see how it all connects, and then I'm going to pause and maybe we'll talk a little bit. To be a Jew in the world, especially to be an American Jew, is to be responsible. It is to wield our privilege with an ethic of responsibility. I learned that when I traveled to Africa. I learned that when I noticed my neighbors. I learned that when I saw someone who looked more like a Jew than I felt historically. I learned that when I went to the White House for the first time because of the massacre at Sandy Hook from gun violence. I learned that I didn't know anyone who'd been affected by gun violence, but my pastors couldn't choose which one to talk about because their lives had been shattered and communities had been shattered so many times. To be a Jew is to be responsible and to never act as if we're powerless, because we're not. We are so far from powerless. Moments in our history we have been. But interestingly, and I say this not casually, when the gun violence massacre at Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh happened, it was the worst violent attack against Jews in American history. That's true. But it was also the 12th gun violence massacre in an American house of worship in 3 years. Oddly enough, that proves that we belong. If you want evidence of it, one other book I'm going to pick up, which I wish I didn't, I edited this just now. I wish I didn't. I wish it didn't exist. I wish there were no need for this. The cover of this should be frightening and familiar to all of you. You want to wonder what the place of the Jew is? First of all, to recognize that vulnerability is real, even with the position of privilege that American Jews occupy. We might not like the word privilege, by the way. It might be a hot button thing to say. But I stood in your gorgeous sanctuary today. And as soon as, please God, there's an equitable and swift distribution of a vaccine for all of us, we get to go home on plush chairs and have some Danish. And if only that were the reality for everyone in the world, the recognition that some countries don't even have any access to the vaccine at all yet should be a call upon us as Jews, first of all, to have some hope, because it's closer to us than it is to others, but a sense of responsibility, because why should that be so? Am I created more in God's image than they? What's my responsibility? Well, when there's a man wearing a hoodie that says Camp Auschwitz next to someone holding a Confederate flag in the heart of American democracy, you know what the job of the Jew is? That's the title of the book that Rabbi Jesse Olitsky and I chose together. Remember and do not forget. What's the place of the Jew, and how did we come to the place where Louis Brandeis would defend and champion the use of dissent? The place of the Jew is to bear witness to history. We are the people that didn't go away. We survived and we survive, and we carry in us essences of every society we have ever touched. You want to know about Spain? Look at Jewish history too. You want to look at where things went right and wrong in Germany? Look at Jewish history. You want to know about the ancient Near East? Study the Torah. We carry essences of everything we have ever touched and everything that has touched us, and we didn't give up. I want to share just one quote. Another nice Jewish guy. This one is Albert Einstein. I like this quote a lot. I hope you will. He said, "How extraordinary is the situation of mortals. Each of us is here for a brief sojourn, for what purpose we know not, though we sometimes think we sense it. But without going deeper than our daily life, it is plain that we exist for our fellow men. In the first place, for those upon whose smiles and welfare our happiness depends. And next, for all those unknown to us personally, but to whose destinies we are bound by the tie of sympathy." The deepest thing we can do, friends, is take care of our neighbors. In the right world, in a right world, it's because, as Rabbi Harold Kushner says, if there were help others sections in bookstores, there would be no need for self-help sections in bookstores. That's the most Jewish way to be. That leads us into justice, that leads us into kindness, that leads us into love, and, as Brandeis taught us, that leads us to make room for dissent, because one day it may be necessary to change our thinking around a pivotal issue we were already decided about. So there's so much more to say. But number one, this is where we started first, gratitude. Number two, this is where we went, responsibility. That's it. It's not easy. I don't mean to say it's easy, nor is it always obvious, because every big question, this is quoting a JTS ad from a long time ago, every big question has a simple answer, which is usually wrong. Judaism never settles on the simple answers. We're more complicated on any big political question, but to quote the last sage that I will, Seth Schleifer said in your bulletin, "As a religious community, we do not stand apart from the nation in which we have been blessed to live. We are obligated to pray for the welfare of our country, and not only pray, but to work. When these developments occurred, our clergy," I'm looking right at you, my friends, my colleagues, "our clergy immediately stepped forward with the resources, our faith and tradition to help us cope with these events. History has taught us that cherished institutions and traditions are easier to destroy than to build, and must be safeguarded even as we press for change." So I was kidding, one more quote, because it's really one of my favorites. Rav Nachman of Braslav taught, "Imatam ma'amin she'achol lekalkel, ta'amin she'achol letaken." If you believe you can have a negative impact, then you better well believe you can have a positive one. We don't give up hope. We decide gratitude, and even if we don't decide it, it's handed right at us. Stand grateful for the world that is greater and more beautiful than we could have ever dreamt. You want to find some hope? Look at a tree. Look at another human being. Look at another box on your glorious screen and see someone's kind eyes looking right back at you. If you long for gratitude, that's why community matters so much. We are strong together. We find hope together when we might not find it so easily alone. And we know that we are called not only to daven 3 times a day and keep kosher and love Shabbos, We are called, as the prophets remind us, that if there's someone who's hungry, you take care of them. Someone who doesn't have clothes, you get them what they need. Gratitude and responsibility. So it starts with a self-remembering that we are strong enough that we have to take care of ourselves, being strong as a community that is flexible to ongoing changes and evolutions, some invited, some not. And then taking a stand in the world because we have something to offer. We have a humble righteousness that we are called to pursue every day with everything we've got. So friends, I'm certainly not done. I've got 15 more books, don't worry. But I want to pause and give us a chance to talk to each other and to hear each other. And I start and end with gratitude, really, really. So thank you for having me. I think I'm turning to Rabbi Arnowitz. I'm not sure whom.
Rabbi Creditor, you didn't tell us what happened to Bob.
Bob, who turns out is a veteran of the Korean War. He continues to get his dialysis, and Instacart became only one of the ways that he got food. A few of us around the neighborhood are present with him. When the weather is nice, he sits out on his front lawn, and I sit on my, I have a little balcony over here, and we just yell at each other, really. And I pray for him and he prays for me.
Okay, thank you for that. We do have a question from one of our congregants. Given all of the many needs that the world has, how do we decide what parts of the world we can take on the responsibility to repair?
So let me answer with a short story. Elie Wiesel was once asked, he was a professor at BU in addition to everything else that he was asked by a student, Professor Wiesel, there's a march against apartheid in South Africa the same day that there's a march in solidarity with Soviet Jewry. Which one should I go to? And Professor Wiesel's answer was, both, of course. Go to both. But here's why you have to go to the march in solidarity with Soviet Jewry. He says, if you go to the march against South African apartheid, who's going to go to the march in solidarity with Soviet Jewry? So some of the question needs some careful thinking on our parts. We can't decide in advance, here are the categories of concerns that I will face. Only Jewish, only not. And sometimes it requires us to wonder, how do you move the needle? We face this at UJA all the time. The allocation of enormous amount of tzedakah. I mean, I didn't recognize when I began my role, we're the world's largest local philanthropy. Our concerns are Jewish, our concerns are New Yorkers, our concerns are Israel, and our hands are everywhere. And I watch my colleagues wrestle with a moral calculus I can't do myself. We do it in small ways when we figure out the little bit of tzedakah that we can give, the time that we have to offer. I think that our answer should always be, how much of a difference can I make here? That's how much of a difference I'm obligated to make. I need to make sure that I remain strong. There's a novel that hasn't yet been published by a friend of mine named Dan Schifrin. You want some great writing, look for Dan Schifrin online. He wrote about a little boy who heard about a Lamed Vavnik. I don't know if you know about the tradition, but the Lamed Vavniks are, by legend, the 36 righteous people whose existence and actions sustain the world, without whom the world would literally collapse. But one of the things you have to know about a Lamed Vavnik is they don't know that they're a Lamed Vavnik. But this little boy heard the story about the Lamed Vavnik and decided right then and there that he has to become a Lamed Vavnik. So for days on end, he would hold doors for someone and make sure to recycle and take care of this and go do that. He literally would just run and run until he fell apart. And he said, I'm not being a Lamed Vavnik anymore. Forget it. This is too hard. And I take that enchanting story as a recognition that we can wear ourselves down to the point that we're not good for anybody. Even an organization like AJWS, where I helped lead, had to do a calculus about how many countries do we tend to, because we cannot tend to every need and make any difference. This is a hard conversation that there's no objective answer to, but it's part of the reason Jewish tradition is so helpful. It helps us decide our priorities. We have teachers and friends, and we do our best, is probably the best answer I can give.
So Rabbi, I have a question. There aren't a lot of questions yet in the chat, and we encourage everybody to please put your questions in the chat. We'll be happy to offer them up to Rabbi Creditor.
There are a couple more coming in, Karen.
Okay, well, I'll ask mine very quickly anyway, because I don't have time to read the chat. But very quickly, there is a historical feeling among the Jewish community that somehow we don't want to stand out too much. We don't want to champion our influence too heavily out front, because we would draw the ire of the greater community and anti-Semitism, etc. So how do we balance the obligation we have to stand up and draw attention to inequality and fight for social justice with that fear of somehow retribution?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question. And, there's one of the books I wasn't going to grab, but it's on the other side. It's not an easy read. I actually don't recommend it so much, but I learned a lot from it. So I'm just going to hold it up. The American Jewish Philanthropic Complex. Not actually, philanthropy doesn't come out looking so good in general. Jewish philanthropy is part of the larger issue that it points to, that sometimes we think we're doing good because we're giving some of what we have, but in fact, influencing the system to do better might be the biggest gift we can give. I think your question is a profoundly important one, because among the Jewish philanthropies that came to prominence in the United States was the Conference of Presidents of Major Jewish Organizations, which was designed to give us a prominent place, a recognizable, somehow unified consensus voice, as if Jews know how to do that, in the world. And the danger of not doing it that way was, the worry was, our prominence in all of these ways makes us more vulnerable. So better to have a surgical use of our voice in the world. But I think that there are multiple Jewish mindsets when it comes to being in public. Is it good for the Jews, right? Is a question that we've always asked. Would a Jew, when Joe Lieberman was nominated, when he entered the campaign, is it good for the Jews? What a weird question to ask. I mean, it's an honest, real question to ask. We know what influence we had in Germany. We know the relationship we had in Spain. I just use those two examples because of the destructions. We can name those two very quickly. I think we should never be shy. And I think we should never be mean. And I think we should never be callous, because the prominence that some of our fellow Jews have had, and the wrong that some of our fellow Jews have done, has led to deep anti-Semitism. But what's really important is it actually didn't lead to anti-Semitism at all. The anti-Semitism was there, and it was just an excuse. The good leadership that so many of our sisters and brothers show, if it invites hatred, it didn't create the hatred. It's hate that's the problem, not Jewish success. So one of the challenges we have to face is that there is a subterranean hatred that is rearing its head again in America today, but actually never went anywhere. My hero, when Neshama was singing, she asked for names of people that we pray for. My hero, Ben Stern, is a survivor of the Warsaw Ghetto. And he was one of the founders of the Janusz Korczak B'nai B'rith Lodge in Skokie, Illinois. And he led the survivors when the rabbis told the survivors, when the neo-Nazis were going to march, just stay home, draw your blinds, it'll go away. And Ben said, I've had enough of that. And got up on Yom Kippur and yelled at the rabbi in front of everyone. He said, not here, not today. And there is a way that our bearing testimony, the way that I've been pointing to, and our vulnerability as we have been inevitably vulnerable, should not make us afraid to use our power for good, because the threats we are worried about are already there. And we're called to do more good for more people. Again, it's complicated when people hear anything political to not hear it as partisan. But I'm going to quote our president, who said, enough of us have cared over the course of American history to carry all of us. We must be part of that enough of us. We must care enough to do with our power all the good we can. And please God, in the right kind of world, loving our neighbors as ourselves on that national and global level will lead others to care for us in the same way. I'm not naive to think that that's true. I lived in Berkeley long enough to be in drum circles and to, kumbaya is gorgeous and not real, but there's a pragmatic solidarity that Jews should definitely aspire to.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from Joel Beckman. Joel asks, what's your perspective on the tension between particularism and universalism? How do you believe we should balance our efforts on behalf of the Jewish community and on behalf of the rest of the world?
Hi, Joel. Number one, I am particularly universal. And I think that there needs to be a cherishing of the tribe and the family, a sense of greater responsibility within my family. I know that any threat to my child hits me differently than any threat to my neighbor. It would be wrong and ignorant and a little bit self-denying to think that I love everyone the same way I love my child. I don't. My children are the most beautiful, most spectacular human beings in the world. And that's actually a really important way to begin. To affirm the place of the tribe is so important, but that doesn't mean that we can ignore. The story, the vignette that I shared about the Pittsburgh attack is important here, because the response of some Jews, and that I'm involved as the founder of Rabbis Against Gun Violence. I talk about this stuff all the time. It's very hard. It ends up revealing such fissures that are both, institutionalized racism in the United States, inequality, where the guns are, what kind of violence we're talking about, who is affected. But the attack on Pittsburgh, for some Jews, and by the way, I say this having had a lockdown alarm go off during my daughter's bat mitzvah a few weeks after the attack on Pittsburgh. I'm not calm about these things, and I'm also, I hope, not fundamentalist about them either. But the reaction of some in our community on the attack on Pittsburgh was only more security for Jewish institutions. Now, of course, security for Jewish institutions. Things radically changed with the attacks in Jersey City and the attack in Poway, California. No question. We should not be blasé to our own vulnerability. But Joel, to your question, the place of universalism and particularism, we have to make sure that we are safe. But we will not be safe if all we do is ensure that we are safe. We have to make sure that we build relationships, interfaith relationships. We have to make sure that our concerns remain bipartisan. We have to make sure that the way we pursue a just world brings friends and neighbors together and doesn't alienate anyone, nor, by the way, should we only celebrate those emails. I'm sure you get forwarded as many as I do about how many Jews have won Nobel Prizes compared to everybody else. I take a page from another friend of mine, Michael Shaban, who lives in Berkeley, whose politics I disagree with frequently, but whose writing I always find provocative and interesting. He had an op-ed in the New York Times many years ago about Jews, which didn't look great, but it was interesting. He said, we're just as dumb as everybody. We're just as smart as everybody. We're just as good as everybody, and we're just as not so good sometimes as everybody. We're human. We're human. We're called to be great, but so is every image of God. So the way I balance particularism and universalism, I acknowledge that my family comes first. But my family also is called to walk in the world on behalf of all families. That's why my family needs to be okay, so we can be the gift of service to God's universe that every human being, every family is called to be.
Thank you.
Aaron, excuse me 1 second.
Go ahead, Rabbi.
I just going to take a moment of personal privilege. First of all, I'm going to have to excuse myself in a few minutes. The life of a pulpit rabbi, I need to meet with a family about a loss that they had recently. Before I do, I just want to take my own moment to thank Menachem, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you and being with you tomorrow. And what a beautiful talk! And I just want to mention that this question around what is our role as as a synagogue community and how we interact with the world and where that balance should be has been on our mind, as it's been on all of our minds so much lately. And so I'm going to take the point of personal privilege to plug a program, which is on March 14th. For those of you who are interested, we're going to be hosting Rabbi Noam Marins, who works with the AJC, is one of sort of the leading thinkers on navigating Black-Jewish relations. You can look him up. He's been very cutting edge, and he's also going to help us kind of deal with these exact questions of, you know, how do we balance when we feel anxious versus how we want to help, and where do we do that. So that'll be on March 14th. Folks can look for that. And in a couple minutes, I'm going to excuse myself. So again, thank you, Menachem, Rabbi Creditor. Thank you so much, Neshama. Thank you to the Scholar in Residence Committee for what's been a beautiful weekend so far, and we're looking forward to the rest.
Well, I just want to say Rabbi Arnowitz has been an incredible support and not only a team member, but a guide to help pull this whole weekend together, particularly during these unusual times. So,
but you're mostly just grateful for me running the Zoom tonight, I know.
We are, that too. Thank you.
Eternally grateful, Rabbi. Rabbi Creditor, we have another question about Olam Haba. So does service in this world give you a reward in this world? Does service in this world give you a reward in the world to come?
So just light questions, that's what you're saying. Let me say this. First of all, Judaism decidedly has no idea about the world to come, and those who believe that someone came back 3 days later are decidedly not Jewish, right? So we don't have testimony about the world to come, but we do have a lot of conversations. There are some phenomenal books about this. I would suggest probably most accessible is Neil Gaiman's The Death of Death. It's a good book on the topic, Resurrection and Immortality in Jewish Thought. And I'll offer my own thinking about this based on some texts, but nobody knows. Nobody knows. The best book on this is not actually a scholarly book. It's a novel by Dara Horn called The World to Come. It's a brilliant book. It's one of my favorites. And her sentence about it, I'm not blowing the punchline at all, but her sentence in the book about it is, the world to come will come. Let's work on this one. So here's a short but more thorough answer to the question. The Torah tells us there are two mitzvot for which a longer life will be the reward. The first one is honoring your parents. By the way, trivia, usually I give people time, but given Zoom, I won't do it that way. The second mitzvah for which there is a reward for the world to come is sending a mother bird away when you want to collect the eggs from a nest. And the Talmud immediately tells a story which helps us face the fact that it is just not true. You can live a righteous life and not end up rewarded in this world. So there's a novelization of this one too called As a Driven Leaf, which features this story prominently. A father instructed his son to go climb a ladder and shoo away the mother bird and collect the eggs, in one action, fulfilling honoring your parents and sending the mother bird away. The little boy climbed up the ladder, sent the mother bird away, collected the eggs, and on the way down from the ladder, tripped and fell and died. And in that moment, that rabbi, whose name was Elisha ben Abuya, but now we call Acher, other, we don't give him a name. He's he who should not be named before J.K. Rowling's got to it. That rabbi said, there's no God. There's no justice, there's no God. But the rabbis turned around and did something which I find to be deeply inspiring, and some can be cynical about too. They said, wait, the Torah is not telling the truth about that. The reward and punishment thing is much more complicated. That boy did the right thing. It's not fair. The Torah promised. God, you promised. So they said, no, the promise of a long life, which is the language of the Torah, L'man yarichun yamecha. The promise of a long life, that's the world to come. Justice doesn't happen in this world. Justice happens in the next world. And then the conversation about Olam Haba, the world to come, continues to change. And in fact, if you're looking for yet another book, this one's called Tree of Souls, The Mythology of Judaism, edited by Howard Schwartz. And in it, he brings in myths of heaven, legends of heaven, midrashim about heaven. Is it a cycle of learning? Do I get to be close to God and sit in yeshiva? Or do I get to be with all of my ancestors? Do I get to reimagine the world? What is the world to come? Ultimately, the Talmud gives us the most important guidance on this possible, which is a person should repent one day before they die. And immediately the Talmud asks the right question, which is, I don't know when that's going to be. What day is that? And the immediate answer is my response to the question, even though it's not actually an answer. Don't worry about that right now. Let's do our jobs on this earth, in this world. And I guarantee you, if there is a world to come, that's how we get there. If there isn't a world to come, this is our world to come. Tomorrow, the world will come that you helped build. So again, I know that I'm going back to my earlier points, but gratitude and responsibility, that makes this world a little bit closer to the world to come. And to quote, not only a non-Jewish sage, but not even a book. This is the play, the Book of Mormon, right? I forget the exact wording of it, but you want to enter into the kingdom now, this becomes latter days. These are latter days. We are called to be the ones who make the world better within these days.
Well, thank you so much. We have one last question and then we'll wrap it up until tomorrow morning. We hope everybody will join us for your talk tomorrow. It's going to be a panel discussion with you and Rabbi Arnowitz and Jack Steinberg on spiritual resilience for families. But before you close, something that's been bothering me ever since we asked you to talk about healing this weekend, and that is, how can we as Jews heal the world during this very difficult time when we're still trying to heal ourselves?
Yeah. Look, I'll give it my best shot, but let's be kind to each other and let's be humble about any of the wisdom we've accomplished. You know, I'll use something I'm in the middle of working on as an example of how unable I feel to truly know the answer to that question. Where UJA is helping convene a memorial gathering, a gathering of healing and hope. I think it's going to be March 2nd. We're finalizing the date for our community with, you know, different elements of what it is to grieve and heal, hopefully. But one of the marketing people was trying to work with language and said, you know, how we found our strength. That was like one of the taglines. And my response was visceral. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't feel very strong. I don't think we're there yet. You know, so to imagine how does the Jewish community, you know, do that? Charlotte, I think, said it just right? The healing is in the helping. I actually think that the course of learning that we've engaged this weekend so far, this Shabbat so far, that's the way. If I really answer from the core of me, I'm looking at everybody here, even though we're on speaker view, I always change it back to gallery view. I'm not interested in only seeing my own face, right? So I'm looking at all of you. And I'm even looking at the 62 people who don't have their cameras on right now. The most important thing you can do, oh my God, Brittany and Michael, you're here. Hi, friends. Oh, okay, I'll call you later. The most important thing you can do is take good care of yourself. You want to heal the world? Stay in it. Build hope. Cultivate gratitude. Put your own hand on your own heart and remember that it is beating with God's power. Heschel said, here we are, images of God, a fraction of God's infinite power at our disposal. Well, when I don't feel so powerful, this is what I do. I'm here. And I'm emotional about this answer. Who wouldn't be? But I want to be part of the world getting better. So I'm going to take good care of myself. And I'd ask you all to do that too. And the second step is take good care of each other. Reach to your neighbor and be a strong shul community that is devoted to the world, devoted to each other and devoted beyond. How we're going to be part of the healing? Let's get there step by step. Remember to be strong. And remember to show up for each other. Again, I'm speaking not only to the converted, I mean, it's the wrong phrase, but this is a self-select group of people who want to grow and show up and learn and sing and heal. So you are the way this is going to get better. And to quote Heschel one last time, Abraham Joshua Heschel, who was famous for walking arm in arm with Dr. King in Selma, but should also be famous for being a mensch, for protesting wars, for protesting poverty, for trying to channel Hasidic learning into social justice. He said, happiness is the certainty of being necessary. That's the kind of happiness I want for you. Remember how needed you are. We need you. That's how we're going to be part of the world emerging from this.
Beautifully said. Thank you for this very, very special evening. Thank you for the whole weekend. And thank you, everybody. I'm so impressed by how many people beamed in and joined us tonight. I feel you. I feel your presence. Thank you so much, Rabbi Creditor. Thank you, Neshama, for your beautiful singing. Thank you, Joel and Shari, and to everybody who participated, to all the ambassadors and the community at large. Please join us tomorrow, 10 o'clock. We look forward to continuing the conversation. Have a good night.
Take care, everyone. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.